Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another in our 2018 webinar series. Today, we'll be looking at Drone2Map for ArcGIS. I'm your presenter, Kerry-Ann Mahabeer, Eastern Caribbean President. You'll see here my email address. You can make note of that. I'll show that to you as well at the end of the presentation. In case you have any questions for us afterwards, you can feel free to contact us. The webinar itself will be focused on the 3D mapping aspect of Drone2Map. So what we'll be covering is an overview of drone technology. We'll look at Drone2Map, obviously. I'll give you a case that relates to accuracy, what you actually see versus real-world coordinates. We'll look at the workflow, which is collect, process, and share of your data. I'll cover the uses of Drone2Map. There'll be a demo for creating 3D data from 2D imagery. We'll sum up pretty much everything that's said before with a video, which gives you some additional information as well. I'll cover a little bit about licensing as well as system requirements. At the end, I'll give you some useful resources and I'll take any questions that you may have for us. So about drone technology. A drone is an unmanned aircraft. Drones are more formally known as unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs. I'm sure you'd have heard that before. These may be remotely controlled or can fly autonomously through software-controlled flight plans in their embedded system, which work in conjunction with onboard sensors and GPS. In the recent past, UAVs were most often associated with the military, where they were used initially for anti-aircraft target practice and intelligence gathering. Drones are now also used in a wide range of roles, ranging from surveillance, traffic monitoring, photography, agriculture, surveying, and inspection, just to name a few. So, as I said, we're not spending too much time on actual drone technology. That's just to give you an idea of what it is, what it does. We'll get into a little bit more about that, flight planning, for example, in brief. But about Drone2Map itself, Drone2Map for ArcGIS is a desktop application that turns your raw drone imagery into information products in ArcGIS. With drone hardware becoming more accessible as we know these days, you can create 2D and 3D maps of features and areas that may have been difficult to access previously. It may be a fully covered terrain, it may be the size that may have been prohibitive, but drone now allows you to capture that data, that imagery data. You can monitor environmental changes, the impact of natural disasters, schedule events, and so much more. Together with many other capabilities in ArcGIS, Drone2Map helps you to unlock insights that may be hidden in your imagery. So what is Drone2Map for ArcGIS? Is it an application? Is it a desktop extension or something else, for example? As mentioned, Drone2Map for ArcGIS is a desktop application. So it's a standalone 64-bit Windows desktop app that will run alongside such things as your ArcMap and your ArcGIS Pro. So it's an independent application to itself, but it provides information to your more commonly known, I guess you'd say, ArcMap and ArcPro applications. The second release of the application, that is Drone2Map for ArcGIS, was released on February 8th, 2017, and it added support for Portal as well as ArcGIS Enterprise. Drone2Map allows you to create 4 classes of products. Author mosaics, essentially 2D products, which you're somewhat used to, things like your base map imagery. You can also do digital surface models, imagery with height values, that is. You can have point clouds for 3D analysis, and a fourth option, which allows for smart 3D inspection of data. So this is good for bridge inspections, for example, or if you need to assess the surface of a building, the structure itself. So what about accuracy? Now, the reason this is mentioned at this point of the webinar is because the rest of the information that I'll be sharing with you would really be meaningless if the results you're getting would be too far off from real-world coordinates to meet your business needs. Of most importance related to accuracy is the specifications of the drone employed, the actual drone unit. What is manipulated and processed through Drone2Map is what comes from your drone, obviously. So you have to ensure that you determine what level of accuracy is needed and make your drone purchase based on that. So what goes into Drone2Map is of critical importance. So this will be shown to you as a video to get an insight from a visual perspective of what is meant or what you can get in terms of accuracy from Drone2Map.
Drones are a new and exciting concept that can easily be incorporated into GIS. In this particular example, we wanted to see how we could utilize drones in the field to augment the as-built survey process. So what we did is we actually flew an exposed right-of-way and in-ditch replacement out in the field utilizing a drone to get the high-resolution imagery that you see on my screen. You can see here it's extremely detailed and gives you the ability to visualize the weld points as well as the rock jacket on the pipeline. Now, we processed this imagery in a product called Drone2Map for ArcGIS. So we took the drone imagery and actually ran it through the tool. And then we also did a field survey so we could see how the accuracy compared. So this first pass that I'll show you does not include any ground control points. It simply includes the GPS in the belly of the drone. So if I turn on my survey, you can see we're actually fairly close utilizing just the GPS within the drone. But what we did is we actually utilized a series of control points that we collected out in the field. So we reprocessed the imagery, and using just 2 control points, we were able to create a new orthomosaic, and you'll notice that the survey data is essentially spot on. So really what we were able to discern is that utilizing a drone and processing it through ArcGIS with only a few control points, we could get essentially the exact location of the pipeline to match our survey information. So we could indeed use drones to enhance the as-builting process.
Okay, so we've covered accuracy, you know what's possible. And you should also bear in mind when deciding on your drone technology, your workflow. So we'll be looking at your workflow now. So the workflow starts with your data collection with your drone. You then go into image processing with the Drone2Map application. And at the end, you'll share your results via ArcGIS Online as an example, but you should note that there are other means of sharing. I'll highlight a few of these for you in the section that gets into sharing. So at the collection stage, your drone's mission is pretty much complete. It's done its job, it's collected your data. You now have a series of images. To share these images as a 3D data set, which again, that's our focus, we're looking at 3D data. You'll first download the images and add them to a new project in Drone2Map for ArcGIS. Then you'll process the imagery to create, for example, a 3D textured mesh. And then you'd publish that data set to ArcGIS Online, where your audience can access as well as view what you've created. There are essentially 2 parts to this collection process and share workflow. There's a drone aspect and there is a Drone2Map aspect. On the drone side, which is where you start, this portion relates to data collection, and it mentions here drone manufacturers, as Drone2Map has the ability to process imagery data from any drone, as long as it captures some minimum things like your X and Y values and height values. So it's not tied to any specific drone supplier then or manufacturer. Your flight planning is generally done using a software that comes with your drone. You set your capture area, that's your area of interest. The number of passes, meaning how much overlap there will be, affects your accuracy as well and quality of imagery. You'll get coordinate information as well as some other details, which I'll mention more about those to you in a few. After planning is your drone launch and actual capture of your imagery. So you plan, you launch, you capture, and you now have imagery. And this covers the drone portion of your workflow. You'll then download your data for use in Drone2Map, where you'll process and exploit the data to create such things as orthomosaics, digital surface models, point clouds, or perform inspections. I described that to you before. The results of which can be shared or disseminated, as it says, via ArcGIS Online, or you can do something like a 3D PDF, which I'll show to you shortly as well. Just a little bit more in relation to your flight planning. This is a use case driven task in essence. These uses will be discussed on the next slide, so you'll understand what I mean when I say use case driven. The use determines your angle of capture. For example, whether that's nadir, low oblique, or high oblique. You'll see some images to the right of your screen which demonstrates these angles of capture. So nadir captures from above, rooftops, for example. Low oblique is at a slight angle, captures some aspects of from above as well, some rooftop aspects there. And high oblique is for full side capture, so capturing the full extent of the side of a building. What is important too is that the drone collects certain types of metadata. At the very minimum, the X and Y, latitude, longitude, and altitude values. The addition of orientation, focal length, pixel size of the sensor will also greatly improve your results. So get to know your drone, get to know its abilities, and ensure that in your flight planning, you set what needs to be there to capture the quality of imagery that you need. There are many commercially available drones, and they have at minimum the ability to capture latitude and longitude and height, but depending on your own needs, then what you get might vary. So the Drone2Map application has some use templates mentioned just before, and I'll introduce you to those in the actual demo, so you'll see where you find these options on the actual Drone2Map interface. The input to these templates are based on the mode of data capture, which I mentioned just before. So nadir shown on the left of your screen here, which looks straight down, flown in something like a lawnmower pattern, if you could picture that. This is ideal for 2D mapping, for the creation of base map imagery, for example, like the imagery you find as a base map within ArcGIS Desktop or ArcGIS Online. Nadir and oblique, shown in the middle, which is essentially the low oblique that you'd have seen on the previous slide, combines looking down and also at a slight side angle, ideal for 3D mapping for the creation of 3D point clouds and meshes. And the high oblique shown to the right, it's full side angle capture, ideal for infrastructure inspection, where the full extent of the sides of a building or a bridge can be captured. So there's your basic Drone2Map workflow related to 3D processing. So we're focusing on that aspect of Drone2Map today. And I'll highlight this particular workflow to you in the demonstration coming up shortly. It's used to process flights with a combination of nadir and oblique. That's the low oblique angle of capture. This source data is then ingested, so to speak, within your Drone2Map application. You set parameters or define your data processing options, which depends on the level of quality needed for your output, as well as what outputs will be generated. You can also add ground control points and this will help to improve your accuracy. You'd have seen the mention of ground control points in the accuracy video that was shown before. You then run your processing to generate your outputs, and these can be 3D point cloud, 3D textured mesh, orthomosaics, DSM, DTM, as well as contours, and there are other options too. So at this point, I'll show you the interface of Drone2Map for ArcGIS. I'll introduce you to the use or the template options that we would have mentioned before, and walk you through the process of creating 3D data from 2D drone captured imagery. Please note though that in the interest of time, I won't run through the process, the actual running of the process, which creates the 3D products from the drone imagery, as the process takes about 30 minutes to complete. I will show you though the products that results from the process, and I will demonstrate to you how you share your results via ArcGIS Online. So at this point, I will switch screens. Just a second while I do that, please. Okay, so you should be seeing the Drone2Map application now. So you've completed your drone mission. You have images downloaded. Before I actually go any further, I'd want to show you those images. So I'm gonna take you to another screen. All right, so for example, these would be the images that would have been captured with your drone, stored to a folder on your machine, on your server. That will vary. Going back to Drone2Map now. So we'll be working with those images here. I'll briefly take you through the options you see within your interface or on your interface here. To the left, you'll find new, which obviously would allow you to create new projects. I'll introduce you to each of these very briefly. There's the option of Rapid. So Rapid quickly creates orthomosaics and elevation models to verify the coverage and quality of your imagery collection. To the bottom, you'll see example usage. It can be used to create a low resolution orthomosaic and digital surface model. You can quickly verify your drone collection was successful and the minimum settings applied for processing. So if you were working in the field, you just collected imagery and you wanted to essentially run them through a quick process to see what quality you're getting, maybe you need to refly the area, then you'd probably be using the rapid project type to get you through that process. 2D mapping is used to create high-resolution orthomosaics, elevation models, and multispectral indices. Looking at the example usage, create 2D products ready for use in ArcGIS, so ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro. Create multispectral products ready for analysis, and you can share imagery as fast-performing tile layers. So think of the base map imagery that you'd see in ArcGIS. That's an example of that. Your 3D mapping template, this creates detailed 3D colorized point clouds, 3D textured meshes, and 3D PDFs. So this is the one that we'll be actually looking at for this demonstration. Example usage, create 3D products ready for use in ArcGIS. Immediately visualize 3D data in scene view. Scene view here, you might be familiar with that, hopefully you are. You can have your 3D scene views in ArcGIS Online, which I'll actually show to you so you could see your data in 3D online. You can share your textured meshes as fast-performing scene layers. And finally, inspection. Inspection processes drone imagery and quickly inspects objects of interest. Example usage, inspect critical infrastructure, view drone imagery in its native resolution, and quickly view imagery of an object from all angles. So think of looking at a building or a bridge here. Just below new, you'll find open, which allows you to open any existing projects you would have created before. Just below open, you'll find settings. There, in this area, you'll see the option that says categories. And here, what you do is to set application default settings for different things. So for new projects, for example, you can set a default location, where it goes to find your images, what your default coordinate system may be. So For new projects, what are the default settings? For your ground control points, where are those stored by default? Your offline base maps has their own sets of defaults too. Sharing, if needs be, you can state if you'll be sharing with everyone all the time as a default setting or not. And you have also some system settings as well. Just below that, you have licensing. So you see your named user account that you're using and when your subscription expires. So Drone2Map works with a named user account. You can also work offline with Drone2Map. So if you check this here, you essentially check your license out and it can work with it in a disconnected environment. You can change the licensing user that's working with Drone2Map at this moment, and you can also log out and exit from here. Your portals let you know which portals you're connected to at the moment, ArcGIS Online in this instance, and you can also add any additional portals you may have access to. When you click Help, this takes you to the Drone2Map Help page. So let me share that. Okay, so you should be seeing the Drone2Map for ArcGIS Help page. This is what pops up automatically when you click Help within the Drone2Map interface. So that's useful. It gives you great details on how to use, what it does, the different templates as well. You can learn more about those. Let's go back to Drone2Map. Okay, so About tells you the version that you're working with, in this case 1.3, and you can also check for updates. And Exit would obviously exit the application. So we're going to go back to New, since what we'll be doing is creating a new project here. All right, we know we're going to be creating a 3D mapping product, so we'll click on that and then click on Create. At this point, there are certain things you'll do. You'll give your project a name. You'll also state where this project will be stored. Select that folder. You have the ability to set your coordinate system to that of your drone. So whatever your drone had captured in, you can change that here. Below that, you can add your, well, not can, this is where you add your images. There are two options. One that says add folder and another that says add images. If you click on add folder, you will select a folder that has all of your imagery stored. And the other option that is add images is used if your images are stored in separate folders, so you can add them individually. All of our imagery is stored in one folder, as we'd have previewed before. So I'll click on the folder itself, select the folder, and you see the images that were in that folder pop up on your screen now. And you see a little bit about them too, their latitude and longitude information and altitude values. So we have our imagery, we know where it's going to be stored, and our project has a name. I'm going to go ahead and click OK here. And this will create a new project, a new 3D project. Let me just zoom out a little bit and wait for this to render. Okay, so each image captured is represented by a blue dot that you see. If you click on each dot, then you see the imagery related to that. The line that goes in between each dot represents the flight line that would have been used during capture, or for capture rather. I'm going to switch to 3D view just to demonstrate one thing for you. All right, so we're in the 3D view, but you'll note that there is actually no 3D data that you're seeing. It's essentially a flat image. So the actual image that you're seeing is one of Esri's base map products. And that can be changed here if you don't want to use the imagery. So let me show you that too. I'll switch back to the image base map here. All right. So in terms of processing, the option that we'll go for is found here. This will bring up a dialog shortly. So you'll set some parameters here. You'll see a few options. You'll see initial, dense, 2D products, 3D products, as well as resources. So initial, dense here, 2D products, not checked. It would have been checked if what we had created was a 3D map and then 3D products. Initial and dense options determine how Drone2Map analyzes each image to match them with the other images, while your resources specifies basic parameters about your project. So these would have already been specified when you created a project. The remaining processing options relate to the type of output that the data that you are creating, because we're using 3D mapping template, the 3D products option is where we'll focus. So when you guys are working with your own data, you generally want to use the highest quality processing when creating your data products. But for the purpose of this demonstration, I'll show you the settings that were actually used, and it would be more for a reduced processing time. Still not that fast per se, but it's imagery. We know how it goes. So under initial, I'll change the key points to rapid. We're trying to make it somewhat quick. Under dense, I'll change this to low and fast. Again, trying to improve the processing here. And then under 3D products, we'll uncheck ZLess and leave LAS. We'll also check objects, and point to note, we're going to create a 3D PDF too. You can add a logo, your own logo if you want to. So that would be stored as an image somewhere. Go find that. And that would be a part of your PDF when it's created. So at this point, we'll click OK. All right, so point to note. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a status bar. It says ready to the far left, and to the right, you'll see a percentage. It's now at 0. We're not running anything yet. But when you start your process, things will change. You'll see what is actually happening at the moment being updated to the left where it says ready. That will change. And then your percentage amount will progress as the process goes along. So from here, what you do is click start to start the process. I won't do that, as I mentioned. That would take us some time, about 30 minutes. But what I will do is to show you the finished products from this process. Just one moment while I switch screens to the actual project that would have been done. So what we'll see here is the finished product. So after the process has been completed, I'll show you what looks different because it might look the same to you now. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And now rotate. What you would have seen before, what would have looked like flat imagery. Now you see the 3D form after the process has been completed. So you see your building, you can move around. Oh, gone a little too far. Let's go back to that. All right, zoom in here. Move around a little bit more. You see cars. Okay, so that is your 3D textured mesh. Another thing that was created was a 3D PDF. Let me show you that too. So this is your 3D PDF. You see the logo, as I mentioned, that can be created. This allows you to zoom in as well and to rotate. So you can share this PDF if you would like to. And then what we'll also do, what I'll also show you, is the process of sharing. So if you go to the tools option, you'll see an option that says scene layer. You click on that to do the sharing of your 3D textured mesh. We'll check that option, and I'll also check everyone so we can share this publicly. And I'll click on OK here. Oh, sorry, I'd need to change the name. We had run this before. So let me just add a 1 to that name. Maybe that's already there too, who knows? Okay, there we go. All right, so your status bar once again shows that you're uploading your scene package. You'll have the percentage going to the right. This shouldn't take too long. It says 100, but there's still a little bit left to go. All right, it says publishing scene layer, sharing your layer, and then you finally get the OK message. All right, I'll now take you to ArcGIS Online so you can view that. Okay, so we'll go to content. And you see two things that look a little similar when the page loads. So this is what would have been done before and might have been giving us our name conflict. And then this is what was just created and uploaded. So I'm going to open this in a view, a scene rather. Wait for that to load. And as we've been doing within Drone2Map as well with the 3D PDF, you can move around, see your building, see the details of your building. Okay. So that covers the process of taking your 2D imagery captured by your drone, bringing that into your Drone2Map application, running that through the process of creating 3D data from 2D data for drone imagery, and also how you go about sharing. So I'll go back to the presentation. Let's get back into this. Okay, so you've probably heard quite a bit, right? May have forgotten a few things here or there. So I'm going to show you now a video which essentially captures what would have been said up to this point, and it also gives you some information in relation to some additional functions of Drone2Map.
Today, drones are creating exciting new possibilities for GIS users. Imagery that used to be too expensive, or not accurate enough, or just didn't exist at all, is now not only possible, you can acquire it yourself. And with Drone2Map, you can bring your new drone data directly into the ArcGIS platform and start working with it right away. Start by using Collector for ArcGIS to capture ground control points. Use the drone and camera that meet your needs from any of the major manufacturers. Save time and money by reviewing your imagery before you leave the field, so you can be sure your drone collection was successful. Back in the office, Drone2Map streamlines your imagery workflow and integrates your new control points to ensure data accuracy. Now you can quickly and easily create seamless, professional-grade imagery products at resolutions that only a drone can achieve, ready to use immediately in your GIS and CAD applications, such as terrain and surface models. Use point clouds and meshes to create 3D views. Share and collaborate with ArcGIS Online and Portal for ArcGIS. And use ArcGIS Enterprise to catalog, analyze, and share imagery throughout your organization, in the cloud and on-premise. Leverage ArcGIS Pro for powerful analysis, like volumetric measurements and elevation profiles, or open your Drone2Map project directly in ArcGIS Pro for advanced analytics. Drone2Map for ArcGIS unlocks the potential of drone data to create professional imagery products that were out of reach just a few short years ago. Drone2Map, bringing your GIS to new heights.
Okay, so we now know what you can do with your Drone2Map application. I've told you about accuracy, a little bit about drone technology, your flight plan. Now, before we close, I'm going to give you some additional information in relation to licensing. So, how is your Drone2Map actually licensed? It's licensed via a subscription. As you would have recalled when we looked at the Drone2Map interface under the licensing section, you saw what your username would have been with your subscription and when it expires. So that's the example, the actual real life example of your subscription, your named user account. You require, or you should have, a level 2 named user account for publishing. So that's needed too. And how many Drone2Map licenses or named users would your organization need? It's recommended that for each drone that an organization has or that it flies, that it gets 2 subscriptions. Now, the common workflow is that 1 license of Drone2Map is assigned to the drone operator, the person out in the field, and is used 100% of the time with the drone itself. Collection verification and quick product creation for the in-field answers. So think back to the section of Drone2Map under creating a new project where you'd have the option for rapid. This is where that would get utilized. The data collected by the operator is then sent back to the office for a different named user to process in more detail on a much higher end machine with the second license. So the other options that you would have seen for 3D mapping, 2D mapping, inspection gets used there by that named user. A little bit in relation to recommended system requirements. As mentioned earlier, this is a Windows-based application at the moment. Whether this will be available on other platforms is yet to be determined. So as soon as we have any updates on that, we'll let you know. But at this moment, it's Windows-based, Windows 7, 8, or 10. Again, point to note, it's also a 64-bit application. In terms of your CPU, quad-core or hexa-core is recommended. For your graphics processor, GeForce GPU compatible with OpenGL 3.2 and 2 GB of RAM. Your hard disk, SSD, and what you see in the table below this is an example, or a guide rather, of the number of images you may have in a project and then the related system requirements that would be able to handle that set of imagery in such a number. So that gives you a good guide in relation to what you may need based on the number of imagery you're capturing for a project. All of this information is available on the web page related to Drone2Map, the Esri web page. It should be noted too that there is a trial for the application if you'd like to try it out for yourselves. It's a 15-day trial, so please go check that out. Some additional resources just before we take your questions. These were the ones that stood out to me in putting all of this together for you that I would recommend you highly, or I'd highly recommend that you check. There's Drone2Map an Introduction. This gives some information or more information on coordinate system, processing time, and accuracy. There's Drone2Map Explained, which gives more information on drone technology, GNSS, VRS, and CORS. There is Get Started with the Drone2Map for ArcGIS. Now this one is more of a tutorial. So the imagery that I would have worked with in our demonstration came from this particular tutorial. So it takes you through the process and also gives you more insight on the Drone2Map interface. There are drones, obviously of many forms, but we would personally highly recommend SenseFly drones. We're the providers for those, are the resellers. And their drones cover surveying, mining and quarrying, agriculture and inspection. So you can check those out too. If you're looking for additional information on drone technology, you may contact Mr. Everard Johnson at products@spatialvision.com. And if you're looking for more information on ArcGIS technology, you may contact myself, President EC, that's Kerry-Ann Mahabeer rather, President EC at spatialvision.com. Now this information, and there may be some additional resources, will be sent out to you after the webinar so that you can go and check each of these out for yourselves. Okay, so now we'll take your questions if there are any. Let's see. Okay, so the question is, can the title for the 3D PDF be edited? Now, what I found in actually creating the 3D PDF, I didn't see an option for that, but I will actually check this out further to see if there is such an option for changing the title. And we'll also include any additional answers to your questions in what's sent out. So from what I saw, I didn't see that particular option there. Okay, another question that we see here. Is the Drone2Map software all that is required, or does an ArcGIS software need to be purchased separately? All right, so I'm going to make one assumption that when you say ArcGIS software license that you're referring to desktop license. And if that assumption is correct, then no, you don't need a desktop license. Drone2Map is independent of that. What you do need though is a subscription license. So a named user account that generally works with ArcGIS Online can also work with Portal too. So that's needed, but not a desktop license. Okay, let's see what we have here. Okay, so the question that I'm seeing here, are all features in Drone2Map available as a standard functionality, or is there different levels, for example, basic, standard, or advanced? So all of the functions are available to you as just one package. There are no levels here as what you may be used to with ArcGIS for desktop. Okay, let's see what else we have. Okay, so one note says, I noticed that the imagery once transferred was not clear. What can be done to improve sharper image? Okay, so I think I may have mentioned this on the off chance that I didn't. The parameters that were set for processing were for a quicker, faster processing. So the output from that wouldn't necessarily be as sharp as it could get. There are additional parameters to improve the quality of the output. So yes, you can change that to get a sharper image. Okay, let's see what other questions we have here. Okay, there's a question related to NDVI. We actually want to do NDVI. Do you do that? So there is a lovely document that we have from Esri that answers some questions, such as this one. So let me just read the question that comes from that document. Can Drone2Map for ArcGIS be used to create special imagery analysis products, such as an NDVI for agricultural markets? And the answer to that is yes. Spectral cameras are supported and will automatically create NDVI products to quickly assess crop health. So that can be done. Okay, I'm checking out just a few other questions here. Okay, so there is one question that says, in addition to ground control points, can you input additional checkpoints for an accuracy assessment? I'm not too clear on what you mean by additional checkpoints here. If you could maybe clarify that for me, I could give you some more information on that. To the best of my knowledge though, and after you clarify, I can probably get back to you on this, but ground control points are what are mentioned in terms of additional checkpoints. So you can let me know what exactly you mean by that and I'll get back to you. Okay, one question says, is there any flight planning software preferred for use with Drone2Map, or is Drone2Map planning to create one? There is no preferred. So the flight planning software is tied to the actual drone device. And since Drone2Map isn't specific to a drone type, then there is no preferred software. Is there a plan to create one? Not to my knowledge at this point, no. Okay, all right. I think that is the time that we have for today. There are a few other questions that I see here, but I will take these offline, but I will ensure that if there are any that I believe would be of importance to everyone who has attended today, that's also included in what we send out to you in relation, or plus, I should say, the resources that were mentioned in the actual webinar. So I'd like to thank everyone for checking out our webinar. Please continue to do so. I hope that the information that we've provided for you has been useful, and we welcome your feedback. So you can please let us know ways in which we may improve what we are sharing with you. And thanks again for coming.